Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Union or Bust. Thank you for joining us. Juan Perez here, Organizing Monster, and Chris Lopez.
How's everyone doing? Chris Lopez, your union brother on TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. Welcome to a special edition of Union or Bust. And if you want to subscribe to Union or Bust, Patreon.com/Union or Bust.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Got it.
Like, subscribe, smash that like button, share, tell your family, tell your friends.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
That's awesome. So I want to introduce, we have Gracie Torres.
Hi, everyone.
All the way from Riverside. And then we also have Councilman Jose Rodriguez from National City, who's coming off a pretty big win. You won, I think, 70% something. Well,
72.
Okay, 72. All right, you got to throw that 2% in there. And they're still counting the votes, though, right?
And counting.
And counting. Okay, and anyway, let's start with you, Jose. So, how many times did you run for office before you won?
So funny you mentioned that. So I ran for office the first time in 2016 and was truly inspired by the national movement. I'm a Bernie bro, and I love when Bernie came out and ran for president. Very few people were behind him at the time, but he was able to push and build a movement. And he spoke to issues that he's always genuinely believed in, and we believe ourselves. And so he really inspired me to run for the first time. And the other narrative was crazy. I mean, the Trump coming out early on in 2016 saying that Mexicans are rapists and killers and murderers. And on the flip side for the Democratic Party, it wasn't much better, right? The speaking to issues of immigration was not much better then. And unfortunately, it's not much better now. And so I was all in and running for council the first time in 2016, fell short by 70 votes. Wow. Did it again in 2018, fell short by another 70 votes. Wow. And then finally got through in 2020.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
who
been a few cycles.
Convinced you to run the third time?
He's going to throw this in my face every time.
It's my thing that I can throw.
First time I ever meet Juan, we go eat. We're eating some tacos, and the first thing he says is, "Are you going to run or not?" And I'm like, "Juan, bro, I lost twice. I don't know. Probably not." And he said, "You got to do it. You got to do it, Jose. You got to do it." Went off a tangent, and that was it.
And then I shot a commercial.
He did shoot a commercial in support of our
campaign.
Yeah.
So we need 70 votes, guys.
No, he kept saying, "You're going to get the Juan bump. It's happening."
He got the Juan bump. Yeah, he did. And then what? That election, you got the most votes.
Yeah, most votes in the city.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Pretty good turnout.
Now, we're not allowed to endorse anyone on the Union or Bust podcast because we're taking grant money. We're part of the system now.
No?
So
We saw that.
anyway,
Just highlighting our history.
Yeah, that's
and our
awesome.
past.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So anyway, I want to so Gracie, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? You're a returning guest.
Yes.
Okay. You also ran for office, the County Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
So what did you learn from that campaign?
Well, thank you for having me again. So there are a few things that I learned during that campaign and I know it's unpopular to say, but campaigns need money. Like ultimately, I'm probably one of the hardest working candidates that anyone can ever meet. Like I work incredibly hard, and it just wasn't enough. So campaigns need money, and on top of that, the like organizing effort behind a race that doesn't like. So how can I say this? So basically, the establishment has figured out how to knock down good candidates, right? They say you throw in another female, you throw in a Latino, this is going to split votes. Like they've done those calculations before. Well, we're just like, let's go in. We mentioned Bernie, right? Yeah. The establishment's figured out like what do we need to do, what pieces do we need to do, and so I think. Moving forward, it's about building a strategy where you're playing chess with them rather than checkers and running behind.
I think that's really interesting because we just had a national election about, 4 days ago?
Oh.
Really?
Is it 4 days ago?
Really?
Is it 5 days ago?
4 or 5 days ago.
So,
I was asleep.
and they're using strategy. They're using metrics. They're using everything. And a lot of people didn't get the result that they thought they were going to get. So maybe those metrics that people are using aren't working so well anymore. What do you think, Juan?
Yeah, I think they're full of shit. Like these consultants, a lot of these consultants are full of shit. They're the ones up there getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're advising these people. They're so disconnected from the working class. Right. I see it here in San Diego, and that's just in San Diego. Maybe they're not as disconnected to the working class as in national politics. But still, I feel like a lot of these people don't listen to the workers. They're not listening to the people in the streets living paycheck to paycheck, one medical bill away from being homeless. I think they're so disconnected that they're saying, hey, maybe do a commercial about this. That'll win votes. Hey, this poll's good. Maybe we should talk about this more instead of really talking about what people
are screaming about. Like, we did it in 2016, right? Hillary said, I'm not Trump. Didn't work.
It didn't work.
Right? Biden came in and said, let's talk maybe a little bit more about policy. It worked.
It worked.
And then we switched back and said, I'm not Trump. It didn't work. It just doesn't work anymore. People, they don't understand. They're very out of touch on what's going on the ground.
Kitchen table economics.
Yes,
That's what we always say on the podcast. You know,
what do we say on the podcast?
The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Kitchen table economics. Yeah. If you're out there, you know, follow that messaging, and it's going to help your campaign. 60% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. People can't pay their rent. People are having trouble paying their bills. I think some parties have walked away from universal health care. How are people, if they're living paycheck to paycheck, how can people afford health care? Those are the main issues. In our podcast, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Green Party, Independent. It's about caring about people you don't know. It hurts me that people don't want to go to the doctor because they don't know if it's going to bankrupt them. It hurts me that, you know, people can't pay their rent. The homeless problem out there. I mean, looking under bridges. It's crazy.
I mean, can I just say this,
though? Go for Jose.
I really think that the Biden administration and Harris administration did a fantastic job. Stabilized this country. They pushed for very good things, including the American Rescue Plan. They gave millions of dollars for local municipalities to invest in our infrastructure, invest in our workers, invest in our parks. And so you see a bunch of parks, you know, popping up all throughout the region, a lot of new investments in our community and in our infrastructure. Guess what? Harris and Biden were able to push that. And actually, Harris was the deciding vote on that because not a single Republican decided to vote for it. But did you know that? We didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, right? The broader community at large. You did.
I did.
Okay.
I think the broader talking to.
I'm saying the broader.
Were you looking at the camera?
I think the broader community at large did not know that. And I do think that's a problem when it comes to messaging for you know, the bigger Democratic Party and established leadership to not talk to everyday working people. I think they're doing a decent job. There's still a lot more work to do, but that message just doesn't get out. You know, somehow we see all these investments in our community, the bipartisan infrastructure bill pushed by Biden at the end. I mean, it's not being touted as much as it should have been. And I think it opens up the opportunity to shift the narrative. So I think we need to tout victories and continue to work forward.
I disagree. Every time you asked Harris a question, they said, well, you haven't done this in 3 years. What's going on? And she's like, no, we did do this, and Congress wouldn't let us, right? The Republicans voted against it. Trump made a phone call, and Republicans voted against it. That was always her answer. So yeah, they got a ton of things done that she did talk about on the campaign trail. But what the problem was that whether or not they had a good or successful presidency, a lot of people are not feeling it. They're not feeling it in their pockets. They're not feeling it because of inflation. They're not feeling it. And she was not quick enough to acknowledge that it's a real thing that people are not feeling that.
I always say the same thing. I agree with all that, with both of you. As in, like in 2020 when Biden was elected, I agreed that Biden was probably the most pro-union president we've had in a while. I agreed with that because he put people in the NLRB that were pro-union. He surrounded the Secretary of Labor, super pro-union. Yep. All these people that were pro-union he had around him. During the pandemic, when we had the PPP loans, our unions couldn't get the PPP loans at first under Trump. And then when Biden came in, he opened it up because we received the PPP loan. And so I saw that and I agreed. And I always told people like, yeah, Biden is better for labor overall. Yes. So probably that means Harris too. But like you said, but people are not feeling it enough because only 10% of workers are in unions. What about the rest of America that's not in unions, that are not benefiting from these things that union members are? And even if you're in a union, doesn't mean you're not struggling. a lot of union members are struggling too.
Yeah.
So I think it's the floor was so low that what Biden did was like, oh my God, it was like he saved labor. But I think it's more like it was so low to begin with. So anything he did was like amazing compared to Trump.
Right.
So,
You showed up to a rally,
yeah.
right?
So to us, it's like, oh my God, he showed up to a rally. But to us, it's like, well, it's a presidential year. And so.
But you're right. The PPP loans being expanded to unions, great. But you're able to forgive these PPP loans for unions, corporations, whoever needed them, but not student loans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which in my family, in my situation, is what is crushing us. As much as hard as I work, a professional, two professionals in the home, they're crushing us. And then they say, oh, 20 grand. My student loans would laugh at $20,000. And that's how a lot of these students are. I'm about to have a college student, and my option for her is like, you need to study abroad, girl. The last thing I want is for you to start your career with the type of debt that I have, right? And so, those are the things like we see there was something maybe moving in the right direction, but there were a lot of promises made that were not kept.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things can be true at the same time. He could have been the most pro-labor president, whatever, and then Harris could have continued that. I think that's true. But what about everything else that's going on too, like the genocide in Gaza and all these things that the world's on fire and we ignored it. Politics did, as in like, no, I don't have to address it all that well, or I don't have to stop it. I know, yes, she made a statement and this and that. They said we're gonna give them 30 days to get their shit out of to put together, Netanyahu, and then we're gonna deal with them. 30 days. That means after the election. So it's like we're not dummies. People are not dummies. We're like, wait, what? So convenient. Right after the election, that's when you're going to do something about it. So I think the average person that's living paycheck to paycheck, that drives through San Diego downtown or Riverside and sees homeless people everywhere, and they know that they have to work 2 or 3 jobs to survive, to pay the rent because nobody can afford a house anymore. Yeah, sure, congratulations, the NLRB is good, but there's more homeless people than there's ever been. Food, gas, everything skyrocketed. Housing, nobody's talking about Blackstone buying off the markets. So I think a lot of that happens too.
And I think that's what focusing on kitchen table economics, focusing on the fact that people are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I use this metaphor all the time. All the time. You know, if you ever seen grass blowing in the wind, I think we've all seen it, right? Well, you know, those are all the problems of the world, right? That's how many problems are in the world. And if you had to listen to the sound of every blade of grass individually, the sound would be deafening.
Right, sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I think the labor movement and our podcast, what we try to do is, you know, obviously we can't endorse candidates, we can't do any of that stuff, but we can do is support the furtherance of the labor movement. You know, people can't pay the rent. If we focus on that, you know, Abraham Maslow, right? Food, drink, shelter, safety needs. If everyone woke up in the morning and realized they didn't have to pay for healthcare, how many people would that help?
But I would say that it is indeed a messaging issue because Harris did make sure in her plan that there was, her proposals, rent control nationwide. Who says that? That's not a normal thing to say for a Democratic Party. So that's something I really appreciated. She talked about a down payment assistance for first-time homebuyers, $25,000 per person. No other party is going to do that or even presented doing that. She talked about a $50,000 tax credit for businesses, for small business startups. That's a good thing. I think the platform was good. I think the messaging was bad. I think it just kind of got lost amongst everything else that was going on. And I wouldn't disagree on the international issues. I mean, it is horrific what's been occurring in the Middle East, and that we have been a part of it. That is not okay. And I totally empathize with a lot of individuals, especially young individuals, that feel the pain.
And I know we're all an expert in hindsight. You know, we see,
Sure.
you know, the results come in, or like, hey, I told you so, I told you so.
Yeah.
I was saying this before the election. If Harris would have come out for an immediate ceasefire and universal health care, the result would have been a lot different. People are struggling right now. You're talking about businesses, right? You're talking about business. Well, people can't pay their rent right now. They're sure as heck not thinking about starting a business. No. You know, and I understand, like, you know, so you got, you know, student loan debt, you have this, you have that. I mean, what's really interesting is the kitchen table economics worked for a lot of policies. People may have not have voted for Harris, but they still were voting for kitchen table economic policies.
Absolutely.
And there were some states, right?
Yeah, I took notes. Thanks,
Oh.
Chris, for the layup. Yeah, for example, in Missouri, they passed a minimum wage raise and abortion rights, but it went to Trump. Alaska, same thing, minimum wage raise, and it went to Trump. Arizona, abortion ban, and it went to Trump. Rights, abortion ban rights, or abortion rights.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically,
And Michigan.
Michigan went to
Michigan.
Trump.
So people want progressive policies or economic policies or policies that make sense basically to the individual, right?
Well, Prop 36. I'm
Go ahead.
not a fan, but Prop 36 passed here in California,
What's
which
Prop
went to
30?
that was the repeal or reform of Prop 47, right? So making crime again, or I think that was what they were saying, right? Is going to roll back a ton of criminal justice reform that has happened, but we were talking about it. People don't want to show up to their small business with a bunch of homeless people in front of their home, and so there's a lot. There's just a lot where people are looking in their immediate situation and made a ton of decisions based on those things.
Right.
But I also think that in some of those states, the message from the Trump campaign was anti-immigration. Anti-immigration, look at all these people flooding our border, look at what's happening, yada, yada, yada. And what we heard from the other side is
We're going to
crickets.
fix that.
Crickets, or we're
Or
going to
from the
do something about
Democrats.
that too, from the Democrats.
No.
Right.
We're going to do something about that too, or crickets. I would love to have a national figure or national figures turn around and say, you know what? Immigrants are are part of the fabric of this country. They contribute greatly to this country, whether they're documented or not, and we need to make sure that we support a path for citizenship. I don't hear that. All I hear is allowing people on the right to continue to shape the narrative that immigrants and people that are undocumented are bad and are terrible. And that's just not the case. It's folks that you see every day. You may not know it, but they're people cooking your food, picking your food. They're individuals cleaning up everything and anything you could see.
They're doctors,
they're
they're
doctors.
teachers, they're nurses,
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
water chemists.
It's a but
they're here.
But that narrative on the
podcasters.
Democratic
They're
end
podcasters.
is not heard. You're
Yeah.
not standing up for me. So why should I stand up for you?
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity to go to the DNC very last minute, and as I'm
This one?
watching
This year?
this year,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and as I'm watching who's there, who's speaking, what they're speaking about. All the celebrity, I think the last night it was like, is Beyonce showing up? That's all that
The
mattered.
highlight.
Not anything else. That's what mattered. But so I'm watching it, and at the end of it, I promise you, I told everyone in there, I was like, Trump's going to win, and he's going to win because of Latinos, because there was not one message here that talked about things that Latinos cared about. The one time they talked about Latinos was Harris saying, we're going to make the border stronger. That's the one time she addressed Latinos.
Yeah.
And I
Terrible.
guess Eva Longoria
Terrible.
showed up, which is cool. But that's the one time she mentioned anything that had to do with Latinos.
And
And
that's
on
what
the
they
other
heard.
side, but on the
Right.
other side, on the Republican side, you see people like Joe Rogan and people like, what's that
Shout out
guy's
Joe
name?
Rogan.
Dana White.
Dana White.
Yeah. What do? They are embracing at least the culture of Mexican, right? Of being Latino, of being strong and affirmative. And so you go to a UFC match, what do they have? They have the largest ever UFC fight, and all it has is all Mexican fighters. Why do you think that is? They're continuing to cultivate a base, right? A base that they are using politically. It is these billionaires that are convincing a group of folks that they have their best interests because they are pro-Mexican. It is why they're investing in Mexico to have more Mexican fighters, because they see a large Latino base continuing to grow here economically and socially, and they want to tap a part of that. And you have the Democratic leadership not caring and not having a plan and not doing anything about it and actually shunning us, and that's not okay.
Right. What they're doing is believing it and saying, "Well, let's go stronger on this issue." Right.
ridiculous.
It's not. It's not.
It's
weird.
ridiculous.
I mean, and I mean I have to say the brilliance of the Republican Party in this race was. Right in the primary, we all knew majority of Democrats didn't want to see two wars. especially the one in Gaza. The Republican Party didn't want to see money going to two wars. Like, majority of Americans were against the war in Gaza and are against sending money even to Ukraine, right? And Trump never made any promises to Netanyahu. He never made any promises to Israel, but he said, we're going to get out of both these wars, right? So he literally listened to what the majority of Americans were saying, where every time you ask Harris, she was stumbling all over herself, right? And it was brilliant. He didn't have to pick a side. He just had to say, we're out, right? And it worked.
And Juan, you were talking about this, the podcast. Before we started the podcast. You're talking about people know how much money by now went to support the war, to the genocide. How much of the U.S. dollars were used? Okay, so people are still being used.
Yes.
Okay, why can't that money be used for healthcare?
Your
student loan debt. So people are doing the math. Right. You don't need a college degree. You don't need any degree to realize that, hey, you have money for all of this. Well, we're the ones struggling. So it's people are putting two to two together.
Yeah, and it's more of like a salt on the wound when we see videos of kids with blown up heads and missing limbs, and we're like, oh, this is what my tax dollars are going to. But when I ask for a minimum wage raise or health care, it's like not enough money for that. So I think people are not dumb. When we organize workers, we know that workers are actually smart. Even if they don't have a college degree or anything like that, they know better. Right. They can read through the bullshit from their bosses. Yeah. So similar with politics and all that. But going back to immigration, I think with immigration, nobody really wants to solve immigration. I don't know if it's a problem or if there's a solution, because nobody really talks about the wars, the coups, us funding dictators, destabilizing American food companies, going in there and taking their resources, Nestle, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. Yeah. We don't talk about any of that. Yeah. And so I think that's the core issue. Why would there be immigration if people's home countries were just as good? If we didn't destabilize Mexico or something, people would stay. They wouldn't leave. My dad wouldn't leave to a place where he doesn't know the language, the money, people, anything, and risk it still because his country got destabilized. So I think if Kamala Harris or Trump doesn't care about solving that issue either. They just use it as a talking point to divide us on
like
these issues.
Abortion.
Like abortion. Yep.
Period.
Well, I would say that I definitely agree with that, right? I mean, we see waves of immigrants coming to this country. They're overwhelmingly from Venezuela, from Bolivia, right, from Peru, countries that are severely impacted economically. Venezuela in particular, after the oil embargo, I mean, their economy crashed, and they have hyperinflation. People are desperate, and those are the folks that are coming out here 3,000 plus miles, walking by train, by any means necessary to try to just have a better life. Yeah. So I do think it is our international policies that indeed drives that immigration push. Yeah. And then to just blame those same people for just trying to have a better life is absolutely ridiculous.
And that's the thing. Both parties use it as a talking point to pin us against each other to win.
Which is why I think it's a mistake of the Democratic Party and leadership to be okay in tacit acceptance of that premise that all these people are indeed causing a problem, not realizing that our own international politics and policies have actually created the problem in the first place.
And then you have a former prosecutor who talks about fentanyl is an issue because of the border, when we all know it's American grown. We all know that it's doctors overprescribing and not being regulated. That is what caused the fentanyl drive. Sure, what is there now an international issue about it? Fine, but it was started here in the United States. It had nothing to do with the border.
There's literally movies right now on Netflix that you can watch
about pushers. A prosecutor that knows better, right? Trump, we can just say he doesn't understand, or they say, right, he doesn't know those things. She knew better, and that's the mission she was pushing, and it's why she left Latinos turned away.
And let's talk about the reaction after the election. Sure. Because there were, I'm on social media, I see things. Some people were blaming certain cultures, and then there's some people that are blaming the Democratic Party. But I think Bernie Sanders said something that's really interesting. I don't have the exact quote.
I got it right here. Yeah, I got it right here, Chris. So Bernie, he had a statement. Okay. And it's pretty, I don't know if I should say aggressive, but it's pretty raw. I'm just going to read the first paragraph. And he said, it should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them. First, it was a white working class, and now it is Latino and black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. That's the first paragraph from his statement. What do you all think about that?
Well, he wasn't blaming. Hispanics. He wasn't blaming. I've seen posts out there saying this is your fault.
It's lazy. It's lazy.
It's like you guys didn't show up to vote. Putting all the blame. But there's a systematic problem with political parties. It's almost like a disease of groupthink. I don't know. I learned that message, and
I think to that,
Yeah.
everybody's human. We're not all perfect kind of deal, so we all fall into the same kind of ways.
Right.
So the right likes to scapegoat a lot of these issues to immigration. Or the economy's fucked because of immigration. Crime rate is up because of immigration. You don't have a good job, you can't afford a house because of immigration, the immigrants. And then the left right now, what it's doing on the back end, it's saying they have to blame other people or other groups of people of why she lost, why Kamala lost. And I think that's part of that. Everybody's scapegoating right now. And what Bernie is saying is like, no. The Democratic Party turned their back on the working class. That's what he's saying. He's not blaming individual or groups. He's looking at it as a systemic problem, which is the Democratic Party. And I mean, Bernie, where were you before this?
Well, yeah. I mean, what
he was at the DNC.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
Kamala.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You
Like,
endorsing Kamala.
I'm like, you endorsed this,
Right.
and it's one thing to endorse it and follow through. I respect that more than to endorse it and then be like, well, actually, stiff arm, he's distancing himself from it, and I'm like, why now? Why do you think he did this? Why did he endorse it? Why did he support Biden and then Kamala, and then why this now? What do you all think?
He was chairing the American Rescue Plan, right? He was chairing the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So I think Bernie was very close to President Biden and continuing to push, I think, a very good national agenda on a local level. So I think he probably felt some level of accountability because he was indeed so instrumental in passing this legislation and also
Close the door, please.
he was part of the establishment at the time. He was pushing, and I think he pushed for very, very good things. So to alienate himself from a group of individuals that collectively they had done good work, I think was very difficult for him, right? I mean, that would be my guess. It's just a human, right? Just as a human working together for years.
I think
and then
he
suddenly
was
to
very
distance
scared
yourself.
of a Trump presidency because I was there did you go to the DNC in 2016?
Oh no, I did not.
Did you?
I did not.
I remember I went. That was my first time I was ever active or volunteered or anything with the Democratic Party, and I went to the DNC in 2016 in Philadelphia, and then we had a meeting of all the California delegates. We were the largest delegation, and then Bernie spoke to us, and that morning is when he told us that he's going to concede to Hillary. And everybody booed him. We all booed him. I did too. Yeah, we all did. Like, what the? Because you can't give someone Mountain Dew, cocaine, activism. This is what's wrong with America. Is this establishment? And then say, hey, we actually have to support it. It's like people spent all their money. They went into their savings. They used credit cards. They fundraised to go to the Philadelphia to hear this now. So people got hurt. I felt like I got sucker punched or gut punched. So. I think it's because he was so afraid of a Trump presidency. He said it. He was crying. He was like, you guys don't understand once a Trump presidency. How are you going to tell your kids that it's because of you guys that you got a Trump president? And then we were like, what the fuck? So on the one end, it's like everything I'm going against right now is what's wrong with America. And then to flip it in one morning when we're there to take it on, it was really hard for people to just... Oh, yeah, you know what? Fuck it, you're right, Bernie. Once you get people activated and angry, it's hard to turn off the switch.
That's it. People are living in fear a lot of, and that's the thing. It's like they say, oh, okay, he's going to roll back, policies. But unions, we're part of the labor movement. Unions were illegal, were ruled illegal by some courts in like the early 1800s. Now, did they go, oh, well, the court said we're illegal, so we can't? No, people, if you're doing the right thing, if you feel like people deserve a living wage. People be able to support themselves. It doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal. You just do it. You got to Rosa Parks it up.
Well, in 2018, when all the teacher strikes happened, these were red states like Kentucky, Arizona, West Virginia. Teachers went on strike, and it was illegal for them to go on strike. It wasn't part of their contract. They could have all gone fired, but they still went on strike.
Right.
Because they felt like they had to do something for themselves, for their families, which is fight for a contract. So it doesn't matter if things are legal or illegal. People are going to fight for their rights.
If it's something that violates the a moral universal law, you have an obligation to break that law. And if you're protesting, I don't want to get too biblical, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. But
say it.
So there's in the book of Daniel, there's a king by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, right? And he's a mighty king, right? And if he said something to you, well, he issued an order. You did it. And he issued an order that said every time you hear the music play, you have to bow down to this golden image. And I think that's what's been happening. People have been forced to bow down to this golden image. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were willing to risk their lives to do that. They said, they told Nebuchadnezzar, hey, our God will deliver us. Yeah. And he got so pissed off, he said, heat that furnace about 10 times or 100 times hotter. And they were thrown into the fiery furnace. Yeah. It was so hot, the guy who threw them in burned to death. But they didn't burn. Okay? God came down and turned it into an air-conditioned living room, right? But they were still willing to die for what they believed in. And I think that's kind of what's going on in the labor movement right now. People are willing to put everything on the line to support each other. You have to care about people you don't know. You have to put yourself out there. And if you bow down to anything like a party or once you start supporting children, once you start supporting people's right to have health care, once you support a living wage, that's going to resonate for people.
Absolutely.
That's doing, God's work, or it's doing what's right.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have this podcast. I mean, I
can't stop, Chris.
I can't stop me. I go.
Just go. Keep going.
Well, I believe in God, and Juan doesn't really believe in God. Well,
I'm starting to because there's no way there's no God, and this guy's still alive. I don't know how he's still alive. Like, I've gone with him to a lot of different places, and I'm like, what? You don't even know where
Juan
you're at.
has witnessed the miracles himself.
Like, literally, we drove up to LA in April or May or something for like an event. He was driving, and there was like people in the streets, ground guiding people for parking and stuff, and they were wearing vests and glow in the dark. Chris almost ran over 3 fucking people like back to back because when he's seen, he's not seen. He's not looking.
I didn't.
He's paying attention to something in his head. I don't know what he's thinking.
I didn't.
But because your wife was like, Chris.
Divine intervention.
Yeah. I was like this.
Yeah.
Look. I think you mentioned really good points, right? Like, this is a time to continue to fight, to continue to organize, as a labor movement did back in the early 1800s and the early 1900s. As Bernie Bros felt so defeated in the 2016 election, here we are, still fighting for a better world and for a better place. And so I am very hopeful, because I do think we do have an energy about us that want to continue to fight, because we know it's right, because we know it's the right thing to do. It's the morally right thing to do, and it's the best thing for our community.
Absolutely.
And that's why I and Jose, I'm sure that's why I focus locally, right? Because they're like, I don't know why Bernie would stump for Kamala and then come out and be like, I told you guys, or this is what happened. Right? I don't know why he would do that.
I was at the convention.
I mean, AOC, right? AOC trying to shut down Joe Stein and all that stuff. I don't know why that happens, right? There's a lot more bigger than me happening at the national level that little old me and the little base that I have can do about it. But locally, there's a lot we can do. But this year, this election cycle, at least in my community, locally, we've taken a lot of L's. Right?
Really?
Labor took a lot of L's in the Inland Empire. We took a lot of L's, and that is because we got distracted from what mattered, from the kitchen table economics, from paying attention to what's happening. Right? We lost school boards, we lost city councils, we lost water boards. A lot of them incumbents too, so, which a lot of it's not supposed to happen, but I think that's why we need, like, my goal and what I like to do is really focus locally, because it's so easy to start looking out and being like, if we don't do this, we're gonna lose our right to this or right to that. Sure, but locally you lose a lot more, right? You lose a city council that is going to stop putting PLAs in. We're more screwed locally than we are because Donald Trump is saying mean things on a platform, on a camera every single day. You lose a lot more there, right? You lose a city council that's going to outsource your trash being picked up. You're losing a lot more in your community than you are whatever is happening nationally. And so I think, at least for my community, for the Inland Empire, my message here is, like, we can't do that again. We can't let ourselves get distracted. I mean, I helped in a few different campaigns, and I'm calling, like, different organizers or different, the young kids that like to canvas and all of that, and they're like, I'm on my way to Arizona. I was like, no, we need you here. Like, please don't go to Arizona, right? Now we know there was no hope in Arizona.
My sister lives in Arizona. Did she vote for Trump?
but that it really is something, like, scary to think about. Like, we lost, and at least in the Inland Empire, we lost a lot because we weren't paying attention to the things that affect us on our daily lives,
Well,
go ahead.
No, I think you're absolutely correct, and the local level matters a lot in terms of, like, campaigns, right? This is why I mentioned kind of messaging, but it really is a campaign issue, because we had Trump campaigning for 3.5 years, going to every little town all throughout the country. He went to Coachella like a month and a half ago.
Right.
And I was there during that time. I can't say what I was doing, but I was so pissed off. I could not imagine coming to the heart of Coachella, which is the heart of the migrant movement. Coachella. It was intentional to come there and to bring all kinds of people there with an anti-immigrant rhetoric. It's absolutely detestable, but it was intentional by his campaign. But to the point, Biden didn't do that for 3.5 years, and Kamala had 3 months. It's impossible to put somebody in that position. I genuinely feel bad for her as a person, as a human, to be thrusted into that position and to be expected to win. That's damn near impossible, because campaigns, as you know, require money, energy, effort, coordination. Strategy. It's a bunch of things that need to coincide at once, and then you need a candidate that is willing to do that.
Yeah, I think
because not everybody. But I'm saying,
I think she's like right now, like.
But I'm saying,
Bernie,
I'm saying, not everybody's willing to do that. You know who else went to the Valley? Bernie.
Bernie did.
Right, Bernie did. He came out here to National City. He came to San Isidro.
He went to Coachella.
Yeah. He went all over the place. Yeah. Why? Because he genuinely cared and believed.
Was
he?
Yeah, he was in Reno Valley, in the Inland Empire.
Yeah, and so those are the candidates we need.
And
people
Bernie
that are willing to do that.
Had an economic message. He talked about everybody should have health care.
Yeah.
He talked about NAFTA.
Yes.
He talked about TPP, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Obama was pushing that.
Yes.
So he was talking
Hillary
about
was
economics.
Too.
Yeah, Hillary was too.
That's all he talks about.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that map that everyone's, like, showing right now? It's like California, and, like, the whole east side of California is now all red.
Yeah,
I saw that.
You know, Bernie won California in 2020.
Yeah.
That first blue map that we have, that's because that's what he was talking about, right? And we abandoned that, and look at where the shift that happened. And it has nothing to do with Latinos and all this stuff.
No, but you know what's a trip? You know what's a trip? So I was precinct walking during that time in 2020. I would run into 19-year-old kids saying, "Oh, wait, are you supporting Bernie or not?"
Right.
That's what they were saying. Right. And at that point, I knew, oh, man, this is hitting big, because he's talking to somebody about the issues that they deeply care about. Right. He's talking about a generation that is being shortchanged.
Gavin Newsom has not won the Inland Empire since his first race. He didn't win the recall. Adam Schiff is losing in the Inland Empire. Bernie won the Inland Empire handsomely. So those things, that's what people want to hear. They want to know how I'm going to survive. Yeah. That's it.
So speaking of that, and I showed you that clip. What are you looking at? I'm on Facebook.
Now I want to see.
I wrote down the Schumer. Remember Schumer?
Oh my God.
So he was on MSNBC. Was this 2016? I think it was 2016. It was one of the elections, 2016 or 2020. And he said, "We'll lose 3 to 4 blue collar workers, and we'll gain 2 white-collar workers in Pennsylvania in the suburbs. He said that on MSNBC. There's a clip of him on YouTube. I showed that to you like 2 weeks ago. It's like that's their strategy. It's like it's okay if we lose blue-collar workers, and because we're gonna gain the white-collar educated people. And I always knew that was a losing strategy. They lost in 2016 with that. I think 2020, Biden was a little bit more economics, and the pandemic, I think, could put a dent in Trump. But I think they went back to that strategy, and they lost. So I'm telling you, these strategists, these people up there, consultants, they have no idea what they're doing. They'd rather lose blue-collar workers than...
As someone that campaigns and is like on her PDI app looking at the 4 voters and like begging, like, I need to talk to your tia. Bring her out too, right?
Yes.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah,
Like,
it totally
Well, that's the
does.
thing. 158 million people voted in 2020, okay, who were eligible to vote in the presidential election in 2020. 147 million voted this cycle. Okay, so that's 11 million people that, for whatever reason, didn't vote. You call it a protest vote. You call it, the fire wasn't there. Okay, for a lot of people to go out there. And
I mean, I can't even believe it. We had 2 amazing candidates.
Exactly.
How could that be the case?
Exactly.
I'm so shocked.
Well, that's the thing. It's like but to me, that means that's 11 million votes up for grabs. Okay, next election cycle, and focusing on kitchen table economics, focusing on those issues. That's those 11 million people. That's going to resonate with a lot of people who are struggling.
Do you think they're going to learn from this?
Ooh.
The Democratic establishment and the
Well,
people up there?
I think that's up to a lot of us.
Day one,
I mean-
they said the Democratic Party belongs to Gavin Newsom. All right, so they haven't learned. They
they haven't
just
learned? Okay,
they
there we go.
haven't learned.
I'm just
anything.
saying.
Maddow?
I'm just saying.
Was that Rachel Maddow?
The only way.
Is that MSDNC?
Stop. Look. We all know the Democratic Party and party platform is created and guided by folks that are elected on a local level, by folks that are appointed. But look, we have a big say as to what the Democratic Party platform is, and I think many of us have, one position or another, or have pushed for a position or another. But I do think it's up to us collectively to guide this institution, and we want to make sure that our values are reflected within the institution.
You know what? I agree with that. All the shit talking I do, I agree with that, because that's the same thing with unions. Like unions are similar, right? Rank and file get to organize and take out leadership sometimes, and that's what.
What did you do? Who did you check out?
Who did he kill?
Gavin. Well,
Gavin.
So
Talk about Mickey.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was.
You have a list.
Okay, so this is what
lifetime?
I thought was happening was I knew Biden was not running. Okay, I knew he was going to drop out, and Gavin Newsom was kind of going to be the backup, right? And for whatever reason, then he vetoed a bill to give striking workers unemployment benefits.
Right.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, you're done. That's cardinal sin. And I think the labor movement is kind of really telling people what a cardinal sin is and what's not. AI and I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, you can't. I go, how much is unemployment per week?
$450.
Right. And then now you see that, and then you see how much money goes overseas for wars. So people are putting 2 and 2 together. So
this is our solution.
our solution is kitchen.
We're going to debut it right now. Hey, everybody, we're going to start a labor party.
Yeah.
That's no
I
secret.
thought you were going to
Labor
announce your
Party.
run for governor.
Wait, there's a
He voted
working
for me.
I did.
In 2020. What, too?
there's a working families party that has a very good agenda.
See,
And-
I think, I know I put it on Facebook all the time. You see, I
Yeah.
put it on Facebook, on Instagram, and then I always get people like, well, actually, technically, we're not Europe, and oh my God, what the fuck? Like, okay, then, so, I don't know whose quote this is.
Why that?
With the glasses,
What is
Was
that?
it Chris? Did Chris?
it was Chris.
Well,
Are
actually,
you trolling me? Are you on social media trolling me?
and then he picked up his glasses.
Oh my
That's what I picture.
God.
These
That
people
was
on
so
social
good.
media,
All right,
like,
go
coming,
ahead.
well, technically, and I'm like, I get it. I forgot whose quote this is, but but it was like, something seems impossible until it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Yeah, sure, it's impossible right now to start a labor party or have multiple parties because we're not Europe or whatever. But why not? Let's just start it. Is it illegal to do one? Then let's just
No.
do it. But full disclosure, I have asked some labor leaders. I'm not going to drop their names because we still want to keep our jobs. And they weren't for it. And
They were
I want-
not for it.
they're not for it.
Can
So
I
would-
name names and you just look at me?
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
wait,
no.
what?
I'm really
That's
bad.
awesome.
Yeah, no.
She knows who it is.
Anyways, no, so I think our solution, that's our project. We're going to start a labor party. There. We did it. We said it. And to us, though, it's not
Grant
that...
canceled. Just kidding. Take that out.
You're
Take that out.
canceled.
The
Don't
movers come in, they're already taking the cameras. They're like, "We're gonna keep that."
Get out of the building.
Hey, are they coming for our stuff right now?
They took Ricardo.
You
There-
guys.
but you bring up a good point. People, look, there were third parties back during slavery, the abolitionists. And people were saying, no. Don't vote for them. They're spoilers. Those people believed slavery was wrong. Okay, and they said, well, we're going to start a political party. Okay, and so that same argument was used for third parties this election. Oh, you're a spoiler. That's a vote for Trump, or that's people have a right to vote for whoever they want. And it just showed the people that said, oh, your vote is for Trump. Well, you could add up all the third party votes and Kamala Harris still wouldn't have won.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think more choice, you can't argue against more choices. There, more choices and more democratic.
Which
Yeah,
is
so
why
there
I
you go.
focus locally.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I'm saying. So, yeah. So, we're going to draft you. We're going to draft Jose. I already told you, Jose. And we're going to draft Sean Fain. When Sean Fain was here during that action, remember? During
Yeah.
the Cal Labor Fed
Yeah.
conference. He was at the flight attendants action, and we spoke to him. And we took a picture with him. And I shook his hand, and I invited him to the podcast. And then we talked about the Democratic Party and this and that. He told me, he's all like, yeah, dude, they need to get their heads out of their asses. Otherwise, they're going to lose. He told me that. And fuck it.
And
then
go
and
ahead.
then I told him, like, well, check it out. We're going to start a labor party, and I'm going to draft you. And then he laughed, and he's like, hey, let's keep in touch. So he gave me his communications director's number. And so I think that's where we're at. I think it's okay to start creating other things, other avenues of pressure. Why can't we walk and chew gum at the same time? We can start a labor party and support Democrats that are running the Democratic Party that are pro-labor. Why not? These rich people, they're supporting both parties. These billionaires and millionaires, they put money into both parties.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we can't sit back, oh, it's too hard. You imagine if people during slavery, oh, we can't get rid of slavery, it's just too hard. No, you have to put everything on the line to do the right thing. You really do. And so it's like if you have to you do the right thing, sometimes you go to jail for doing the right thing. Sometimes you die for doing the right thing.
Is that your formal platform? Because
It's really hard to join.
let me think about this.
Well, I mean,
All in.
No, I'm
Some
gonna tell you
of
what
you
I'm-
will go to jail.
well, but I think the danger, and to just be very objective, right? Maybe on a local level, supporting local candidates is a fantastic thing. But once you get to a national level and you have national candidates pinning up against Democratic candidates, then that will inevitably split votes.
I don't think
And-
so, because
I'm
I
just
believe
saying,
a Labor Party can pull Republican voters too.
Yes.
Remember in 2016, I have Republican friends because we're in the Marine friends, and they said they would have voted for Bernie. Republican, gun owning, Second Amendment.
Because they're pro working family
Exactly.
message from Bernie, right? Why can't we continue to push that message within the Democratic Party?
we can do that and chew gum at the same time.
we could have 4 parties,
Yeah,
5
we're gonna
parties,
have 10 parties. Yeah, why not?
We're gonna have parties everywhere.
Yeah, we're just gonna have a party.
We're gonna have a party.
We're gonna have a party right now.
Yeah, December 17th.
I know, Chris, you can't say that's
Oh shit!
founding
Cut that out.
fathers. Yeah, but I think
What is happening?
Are we
Don't worry, you're
invited?
invited.
We're invited. What are we doing?
so. Yeah, I think it's easy to do the blame game and blah blah blah. But I think it's more important to like, okay, now what are we gonna do about it though? People are still struggling every day, living paycheck to paycheck. These issues, are they gonna get solved right now? Probably not. If anything, it'll probably galvanize more people to be more.
Nationally, not. Like nationally, probably not. Not in 4 years. Not when Gavin Newsom does another 8-round bid or whatever 8-year bid or whatever he does. But locally, it can happen. It really, I've seen it happen in the. I speak only from the Inland Empire, but in the Inland Empire, we saw it happen, right? Which is why all these losses were so devastating. But we Our school board, I think I talked about this last time. Our school board had the biggest PLA ever in the history of the city of Riverside. First one, biggest. Those things can happen, and those are the things that affect us daily, right? So we can insulate ourselves and protect, and that's what California is, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us are like, well, yeah, maybe abortion might be gone next year, but California's going to be okay, right? But we can also do that locally with things that matter at the kitchen table, right?
All right.
What I think we cannot shield ourselves completely from, and we're going to have to brace ourselves, is this issue of immigration. I think they've said from day one they're going to try to deport the largest mass deportation effort in the history of this country.
Do you think it's going to be like
Think
what
about
was it in
that.
the 30s?
Yeah.
Project or deportation? What was it?
Yeah, there was mass
Repatriation.
repatriation. A bunch of
Yeah.
Mexicans, many of which were born here,
Yeah.
were just kicked out to Mexico. I think they're serious about that.
think
I don't think they're
Mexico's
joking.
got
I
the
don't think they're
most
joking about that.
left-leaning, send me back,
Yeah.
left-leaning woman president. So, but no, I mean, it is scary.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what we need to do is realize that he doesn't really have the power to do that.
That's
I think
I think
they have the Senate and they have the Supreme Court.
might
I
have
think there are
Congress.
very few stopgaps for that man and the
But-
people that are around him, which are batshit crazy and they're racist. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but to again go to the issue of immigration and how the Democrats have continued to steer away from it instead of embracing us and embracing our camp. This is the result. We have a portion of the Latino population which Trump spoke to, and the Democrats did not.
Check
And
it out.
that's
My
a
dad,
problem.
I'm calling out my dad. My dad, he told me, hey, Kamala will continue the wars. Trump is going to stop him. What do you think? My dad barely.
I'm sorry,
speaks
we weren't in war when Trump was president.
no. He's talking about this election.
But I'm saying
Was she
he
saying
has
that
a
There was
she
the
track
had
record.
a
Afghanistan
point.
war.
He
There was
has
the
a-
Afghanistan war that he never shut down, right? That was still happening.
So I told
But
my
he has a track record of not being. I'm just gonna say this. Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris.
that's the biggest. red flag.
I'm like Dick Cheney is known for being a war criminal, warmonger, war machine, that's Dick Cheney, and he picked which one was going to continue his agenda.
So
But that goes to the point of the Democrats continuing to swing to the right, being more
Yeah.
centrist and to the right, instead of continuing pushing the opposite
So you know
direction,
what?
which
The whole-
speaks to a portion of the population that didn't come out and vote.
yeah. So I think I'm centrist. I'm not a left radical. I'm pretty centered. I'm
Bro,
pretty.
you in the center of like two leftists.
I'm like, what center are you talking about?
Center.
I'm pretty. What are you
talking about?
Because
He always talks about how conservative he is.
He has one gun, and he was like, "I'm in the center."
I only got
the
one.
American flag is big. Trucks, like, this, but you can't even see it. No, I'm pretty
I was
conservative.
like, "You're in the
and-
center of like two left-leaning."
No, what I'm saying is like most of America wants health care. Most of America wants to end these wars. They want affordable housing. They want to be able to buy a home, send their kids to college. That's most of America, whether you're right or left or conservative or liberal. Yeah. That's what I believe, and that's where I stand. I'm like, okay, I want everybody to have health care. I want you to send your kids to college. You can do whatever the hell you want at home. I don't care. You won't tell me what to do, and I won't tell you what to do. That's a conservative kind of mindset. Like, hey, my rights are my rights, and that's it. I can own a gun, but I also want health care. And that's why Bernie spoke to those people, because they're like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. Mm-hmm. So I think if we go back to the economic kind of policy or messaging, and that's a winning strategy for sure. But I think they also have to follow through, though. They can't just say all these things, and they're like, yeah, but you brought on Liz Cheney, so like you say you're the peace candidate. But
Can we circle back to Michigan?
Oh yeah, what's going on with Michigan?
That's all
I
that
wrote it
Trump
down,
had.
but I didn't
Trump
say
went to
anything else.
Michigan, and all he had to say was like, she has Liz Cheney. Like, period, done. And that, I mean, the results showed themselves. The Lebanese, the Muslims in that
Yeah.
state said, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
Right?
War is not popular because
No,
why-
it's not popular just in general, but to all those who served in Iraq that came back, saw the devastation, the 20-year war, they don't want to see this again. They don't want, and we certainly, and those of us that have student loan debt don't want to see billions going across the
Yeah.
world.
So
right?
and the Vietnam War, what did it create? It created the anti-war movement because it was the first televised war.
Sure.
People back home are like, what the fuck is going on in war? So they created the anti-war movement. Guess what? They got rid of the draft.
Right.
Okay, so then now I think with this war, what's going on in Gaza, people have cell phones. People are recording everything and sending it back to us. So it's another televised war. So we're seeing what's going on. We're like, this is what my tax dollars paying. So it creates an anti-war
And,
movement.
the Democratic solution was to ban TikTok. Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
That-
man.
that's
I mean-
the solution.
And then the
how about
kids
if we
are like-
stop looking at this
Well, that
for a second?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There were so many missteps during the. Go ahead.
Well, I would say
Leave it
I
on the
agree,
cover.
and that was a mistake on the national Democratic level. To believe that Trump will be any different is a lie.
Oh, no, I know.
He is
no
going
one's
to be.
gonna say
He
he's
is going to
gonna
be
be
more than.
do a
I mean,
good
when you have.
job.
I remember him saying that he was going to bomb countries into the Stone Age.
But what he
who
al-
says that?
But what he
That
also
is-
he also said we're not banning TikTok. Like he went against the
But,
TikTok.
but what I'm
ban.
saying is, to run as a candidate of peace,
Yeah.
for this
No,
man
nobody's peace,
is absolutely
I think.
ridiculous.
Nobody's
I don't think
peace.
that's what we should expect.
Yeah.
Right.
No, what I expect is now people are going to be more galvanized. I expect people to be more out in the streets against the war in Gaza, against the genocide in Gaza, because people are going to now. It's Trump now. You're the one leading this in Gaza, so now we're anti you. We're anti this genocide. So I think it'll galvanize more people in that way. And labor is not going to stop. Labor has the highest approval rating it's ever had since the 60s. So if anything, we're going to just continue to organize, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have.
Well,
That's the power.
And I think to your point, Jose, like if we, he's right. People are galvanized. People are scared. There are real issues that came out of Donald Trump's mouth that make us really nervous, and I think people are going to start fighting. But the what we want to see is that the Democratic Party starts listening, right? And they say, people are galvanized. Are we going to pick up this movement and walk alongside them, run alongside them, or are we going to continue to create barriers for this?
I agree, and I think we are part of that solution,
Sure.
right? By doing these continued pushes to make sure that the Democratic Party listens to us is a part of the solution. We need to be louder, and we need to be bolder, and we need to push our agenda.
See, that is the messaging. That is important. However, you do look at social media, and that's not the messaging right now on social
but these
media.
people are losers.
Yeah.
These people online that are starting to put finger.
By the way, follow us on. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, organizing monster.
I'm your union brother.
Well, it's because for them, they're scapegoating and blaming half the country right now. It's not a winning strategy. They're blaming a lot of labor people right now.
It's lazy. They're blaming Latinos.
Yeah, they're blaming
Oh,
Latinos.
yeah.
It's like, okay, that's not a winning strategy. Let's regroup. Let's organize each other.
Yeah.
Whether you're a Trump supporter, Harris supporter, Joe Stein, or whoever the libertarian was. Whether you're black.
Chase Oliver.
Oh, damn. Whether you're a woman, man, whether you're Muslim or Christian, labor wants you. We want everybody in this rainbow coalition. We're the true rainbow coalition.
is.
Like, I don't care if you have a MAGA hat on. Bring me a spare one. I'll wear it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't care about these differences that they're trying to divide us. They'll continue to try to divide us. That's what they're paid for. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, they make money off division. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to bring us all together, be galvanized, and volunteer and support each other. It's one thing to be on Facebook and just yell at the screen, and that's awesome, but you're not doing anything. No. If anything, you're just pissing people off. Or come out and volunteer for people that are running for office that you truly believe in. Volunteer for them, help them, support these podcasts. Yeah, Patreon.com/UnionnorBust podcast. There you go. So support each other, because even in labor, people support. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you should have. Okay, then come out to this action. What the fuck? Because our fight is your fight. Your fight is our fight. Same thing with politicians. Same thing with everything.
Yeah, it's like this. When I was on strike in 2003, 2004, I was out there 4.5 months. And I remember there was a guy named Nathan, I'll never forget. And we go back and forth and argue about social issues. Well, you're on the picket line. I mean, you're just talking, holding a sign. But he was out there on day one. And then 139 days later, 4.5 months later, he was out there with me. And it wasn't, the division on social issues that kept us together. It was the labor movement. Yeah. It's about kitchen table economics. Yeah. They're trying to take away our pensions. Yeah. They're trying to make healthcare less affordable. So the kitchen table economics issue, I think, is that's just free political advice out there for anyone running. Stick to the main thing.
Well, can I just have a little plug in there? AFSCME 3299 workers have voted to go on strike. These are workers statewide, representative of the UC system. The UC system doesn't function without them, right? And they're going on strike because they see that their same president is earning, nearly $1 million a year, right? People that are on top of these public institutions are making obscene amount of money, and at the same time, their own pension money is being used to invest in Blackstone, which is purchasing property, increasing rent prices throughout the region. That's absolutely crazy. But those are, just to put a little plug, those are the kind of fights that we need to continue to support, right? Those are local fights, statewide fights for workers day in and day out.
Blackstone also owns Encore, which we'll be getting into it later on this year, early next year. Blackstone owns everything. They own housing, they own their pensions, they own our pensions.
Ridiculous.
And then they own these hotels, and they own the AV company that we've organized. So I think Ricardo already gave me the text message. So any last words or word of advice or something optimistic, like it's not doom and gloom all the time.
It isn't. One thing that something positive that has come out of this election is that I think that in 2016, you blame Latinos, you blame the working class. That's working, right? We're all going to be mad at them. But no, I scroll through Twitter. I'm scrolling through TikTok, and people are like, no, you guys, we need to stop and listen. I think that's been the resounding message coming out of this election is that everyone realizes that we weren't listening, right? We weren't paying attention. We weren't focused. And so I hope that my hope is that becomes into the focus and listening that needs to happen coming out of this election. And so I think it's beautiful. We're when your kids finally oh yeah, okay, my mom was right if I just stopped and listened, or other way around, whichever. But
are you gonna run again?
Yeah, I will.
Well, there you go. You heard it first.
I will run.
Breaking news on the UnionorBust podcast.
For re-election.
and we're all going to max out for your campaign, right?
Yeah, we're all gonna max out.
Right?
Hey, we need our grant money.
Yeah.
Cut that out. We're part of the system.
Wait, what's the max? I'm just like...
I have no max.
Oh, damn!
Thank you,
Damn.
Citizens United.
So you do Trump policies sometimes.
Sometimes you got to trump it up.
You got to use the system against
It's hilarious. Well, I'll say this. Throughout the messaging over the last 4 or 5 months from the Democratic Party, I didn't hear young people's voices or our issues mentioned once. Very, very few times. I think in terms of the kitchen table economic issues, to look at our generation, we are the generation that is getting shortchanged left and right. Mm-hmm. We are the first generation in the history of this country to be making less money than our parents. We're the first generation in this history of this country to have less home ownership opportunities, less healthcare, less life expectancy, and all the policies we continue to see on our national level do not help us. And so we need to make sure that our voices are heard, that our young voices are heard. I mean, as I was knocking on thousands of doors, I heard the same story over and over again. 25, 26, 27-year-olds with 1 or 2 kids living in a multi-generational household because rent is too damn high, because they can't afford to buy a house, because houses are too damn expensive. We need federal programs to help us build more home ownership, affordable home ownership for national city residents and throughout the state and throughout the country. We desperately need that, and we need the Democratic Party to listen and work on behalf of our generation, because we are being left out, carved up, and completely forgotten. And this is the result.
Well, there you go. The Labor Party is a solution. You're right, Jose.
Join the union.
There you go. Join the union, organize your workplaces, and thank you for following us. Make sure you subscribe to our Patreon. Come on, don't be cheap. It costs money, and we need money to donate to Gracie and Jose.
You're gonna have to cut that out. We are part of the system.
Yeah, we can't.
I think we're going to jail. Anyway, your union brother.